The rain was coming down in sheets as I drove home, the wipers of my old Ford working overtime. I'm Bertram, 46, and an architect in Seattle. I should have been happy. I had a good job, a comfortable home, and a wife, Myril, whom I loved more than anything, or so I thought. The first crack in our perfect facade appeared subtly. Myril, who works as a marketing executive, started working late more often. Important deadlines, she'd say, kissing me quickly before rushing out the door. I didn't suspect anything at first. We'd been married for 15 years, a testament, I believe, to our unwavering commitment. Then came the phone calls. Myril would step out of the room to answer them, her voice hushed and secretive. When I asked who was calling, she'd brush it off. "Just work," she'd say, her eyes darting away. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut, the unease that grew with each passing day. One evening, Myril told me she had to go to a conference in Portland for a few days. "It's crucial for my career, Bertram," she explained. "I need to network and make connections." I kissed her goodbye at the airport, a knot of anxiety tightening in my chest. That night I couldn't sleep. The house felt empty and cold without Myril. I found myself wandering into her study, a room I rarely entered. Her laptop was on the desk, still open. I hesitated, then told myself it wouldn't hurt to check her email, just to make sure everything was okay. I typed in her password, a password I'd known for years, and her inbox opened. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the name Thaddeus in the subject line. Thaddeus. Who was Thaddeus? I clicked on the email, my hands trembling. What I read next shattered my world into a million pieces. It was a love letter, filled with intimate details and promises of a future together. "I can't wait until the conference, my darling," it read. "Just you and me, away from prying eyes." I scrolled through the rest of the emails, each one a dagger to my heart. Myril and Thaddeus had been having an affair for months. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the business trips, it all made sense now. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, the air knocked out of me. I stumbled back from the desk, my legs weak. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Myril, the woman I loved, the woman I'd built a life with, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The next few days were a blur. I barely ate, barely slept. I replayed the emails in my head, each word a fresh wound. I tried to understand why Myril would do this to us. Had I not been good enough? Had I failed her in some way? When Myril returned from Portland, she acted as if nothing was amiss. She kissed me, told me about the conference, and asked about my week. I stared at her, my heart aching with a pain I'd never known existed. How could she be so normal, so nonchalant after what she'd done? I knew I couldn't keep it inside any longer. I had to confront her. "Myril," I said, my voice trembling, "I know about Thaddeus." Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, her eyes wide with fear. I showed her the emails, the evidence of her betrayal. She couldn't deny it. She broke down, sobbing and begging for forgiveness. "It was a mistake, Bertram," she cried. "I don't know what came over me. I still love you." I wanted to believe her, to forgive her, but the trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. "I don't think I can do this, Myril," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I can't stay married to someone who would betray me like this." She pleaded with me, promised to end the affair, to do whatever it took to win me back. But it was too late. The image of her with Thaddeus, the words of love they'd shared, were burned into my mind. I couldn't erase them. I asked her to leave. She packed her bags, her tears a pathetic attempt at manipulating me. As she walked out the door, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for the loss of what we'd had, relief that the charade was finally over. The divorce was messy and painful. There were lawyers, arguments, and accusations. Myril tried to paint me as controlling and unreasonable, but the truth eventually came out. The affair with Thaddeus was exposed, and she lost any sympathy she might have garnered. I moved into a small apartment downtown, a stark contrast to the comfortable home we'd shared. I spent my days working, trying to lose myself in my projects. But at night, the loneliness would creep in, a constant reminder of what I'd lost. I started seeing a therapist, someone to help me process the pain and anger. She encouraged me to focus on myself, to rebuild my life. It was a slow and difficult process, but I started to heal, little by little. One day, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer it, but something told me to pick up. It was a woman named Adelie. She said she was Thaddeus's wife. I know about the affair, she said, her voice trembling. Myril and Thaddeus. It's destroyed my life too. We talked for hours, sharing our stories of betrayal and heartbreak. We discovered that Thaddeus had been using company funds for lavish dates with Myril. He had been living a double life, and both Ottilie and I were victims of his deceit. I'm going to expose him, Ottilie said, her voice filled with determination. I'm going to make sure he pays for what he's done. I offered to help her, to provide any information I had. Together, we gathered evidence of Thaddeus's fraudulent activities and took it to the authorities. The investigation was swift and thorough. Thaddeus was arrested and charged with embezzlement and fraud. Myril, caught in the crossfire, lost her job. Her reputation was ruined and she was ostracized by her friends and colleagues. I watched from a distance, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. She had reaped what she had sown. Ottilie and I grew closer during this time. We supported each other, offering comfort and understanding. We found solace in our shared experience, a bond forged in the fires of betrayal. One evening, Ottilie invited me to dinner. We talked about our lives, our hopes, and our dreams. I found myself drawn to her strength, her resilience, and her kind heart. We had both been through hell, but we had emerged stronger and wiser. As the evening drew to a close, I reached across the table and took her hand. "Ottilie," I said, "I know it's soon, but I think I'm falling in love with you." She smiled, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "I think I'm falling in love with you too, Bertram," she said. We started dating, cautiously at first, then with increasing passion. We discovered that we had a lot in common, a shared love of art, music, and good food. We laughed, we cried, and we supported each other through the ups and downs of life. 2 years later, I stood at the altar, waiting for Ottilie to walk down the aisle. As she approached, radiant in her white dress, I knew I was the luckiest man in the world. I had found love again, a love that was stronger and more real than anything I had ever known. Myril, on the other hand, was living a lonely and isolated life. She had lost her job, her friends, and her reputation. She had alienated everyone who had ever cared about her. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was struggling to make ends meet, working odd jobs to survive. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but I knew I couldn't help her. She had made her choices, and she had to live with the consequences. I had moved on, found happiness with Ottilie, and built a new life for myself. As I exchanged vows with Ottilie, I thought about the past, the pain, and the betrayal. But I also thought about the future, the love, and the hope. I had learned a valuable lesson, that even in the darkest of times, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes, the greatest betrayals can lead to the most unexpected blessings. Life had a funny way of working out. Myril's betrayal had initially seemed like the end of the world, but it had ultimately led me to Ottilie, to a love that was deeper and more fulfilling than anything I could have imagined. I was grateful for the pain, for the struggle, for everything that had brought me to this moment. I was finally, truly happy. This story is about how Bertram's life imploded when he discovered his wife Myril's affair with Thaddeus. The betrayal led to a painful divorce and the exposure of Thaddeus's fraudulent activities. However, amidst the chaos, Bertram found an unexpected connection with Ottilie, Thaddeus's wife, who shared his pain. Together, they sought justice and found solace in each other's company. Their bond blossomed into love, leading to a second chance at happiness for Bertram. The story explores themes of betrayal, justice, resilience, and the possibility of finding love after heartbreak. Remember, even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter future. Until next time.